Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. My name is Mayor Cal Sheehy, and I'm joined by City Manager Jess Knudson.
Good morning.
We are going to have a welcoming from our fire chief, Chief Brian Davis, if you want to share a few words. We're going to stand close to each other so so people at home that are watching us can pick up on the mic. So
I'm usually not this friendly with the mayor, but I'm using his mic, so please bear with us. Welcome to Fire Station 2. I do have to say I apologize. The fire marshal said we have too many people, so everybody out. Just kidding. So, again, welcome. I just want to say that when we wrap up here today, you're all invited to take a tour. Captain Shuck and his crew will be here to kind of walk you through, unless they get called out, but we have a couple other people here, so if you see someone standing around, they'll take you anywhere you want and show you everything you want to see here. This is just like the fire station that's in your neighborhood, with one exception. This is also our training center. So out back, if you take a look, you'll see training props and things, the training tower. So we can simulate just about everything. We do, in fact, do simulated fires, car fires, things like that, so that the folks can train regularly. We have a full schedule that we do throughout the year to go through all of the events that we would potentially encounter during the year, and so we practice on them regularly. You may not realize it, but your engine that's down the street, it may just disappear for a couple hours one day. The reason is because they're rotating through here. Just about every day, just about every engine ends up rotating through here, and they're doing something. We do that 7 days a week. If you were up here last Sunday, when I stopped by, there were trucks out there, they were doing pump testing. And so every piece of equipment gets tested regularly. Some more rigorously than others, but that's just the process that we do. And so that's so that I can say to you that you can rest assured that we're doing the best we can for you and providing you the service that you would expect. So, again, welcome. Please run Shuck and his folks through the paces when you're done, and stay as long as you'd like. And am I getting cut off, or is it a sound check? Okay. So, and that's it. That's all I've got. So, thank you, Mayor.
thank you, Chief Davis. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, so the format this morning is Jess and I will just go through a few of the hot topics that are hot and talking about here in Lake Havasu City, and then we'll answer any questions that you may have about any topic that is important to you about the city. So we'll start off first with downtown traffic and talk about the medians. Let's just get that right out of the way of what's happening. I believe we explained a few months ago that there's actually two different projects that were happening along Lake Havasu Avenue. The first was from South Palo Verde to the industrial area, and that was in front of a few businesses that was putting in medians and making that area safer for folks that are traversing along that section of the roadway. That roadway is now complete. There is some awkward line adjustments that are in that area that folks are getting used to, and but it is a completed area at this point. Jess and his office are working with some of the business owners to mitigate some issues that have arisen in that area that they're trying to work through. So, but that area is a completed project at this point. The more pressing project right now is the one in the main downtown corridor between Mesquite and Swanson. And that area, believe it or not, is going very well. So it's moving fast. It's teaching us all how to use four-way stops again. Yeah, that's a nice addition, right? But it is moving quick. It'll be done in May. It's on track. A lot of people are saying, well, there's nothing is happening. And I don't see anything happening at all. But a lot of the work is happening underground, and a lot of the work is happening overnight. To ensure that we're not impeding traffic as much as possible. So, although very frustrating, it is on track, and it's moving along just as planned. That will, of course, have a median as well along that area. That will be restricting some left-hand turn lanes into businesses along that corridor. And as Jess likes to tell us, in a few years, 10, 20, 30 years, Lake Havasu Avenue will have medians primarily along the entire roadway because it's the only alternative that we have to the main corridor for Highway 95. So be patient. We know change is difficult, but it is working its way through. A lot of folks have said to us, about timing. Why would we wait until the event season starts, or why would it be when our winter visitors are enjoying our great city? But the timing, there's two facts there. One is the timing was always going to be horrible. It doesn't matter if it's now or tomorrow or in the summer or in the winter. But we actually had some feedback during some of our open houses with the local businesses that this was a preferred time. to do it. And so that's the reason that we're doing it at this time. So, you have any?
And just, I guess, the timeline, we're on schedule. The plan has always been to complete it by Memorial Day weekend, so that's coming up at the end of May. So be patient with us. In the end, we'll have a nice product, but there's going to be a lot of inconvenience in the meantime. And we're trying to get that done before the big boats start to come to Lake Havasu and be able to get through that area. So be patient, and thank you.
So the next thing we want to talk about is we had Governor Ducey visited us in the last month since we met last time. He was able to give us a State of the State address. At that same time, I had the ability to give a State of the City address, where we focused on the vision for Lake Havasu City and where we're going and what are the top priorities. During that process, we were able to have some conversations with Governor Ducey and his office about the Havasu Riviera State Park and the Havasu Riviera development. You may have noticed on Highway 95 that there's a stoplight as you're heading south, but it's not working right now. It's not turned on, but there is a stop sign. I'll just remind everyone the Riviera project is a public-private partnership. The first public is Lake Havasu City. The second public is Arizona State Parks. And the private is a private developer, the Comac Enterprises. So those are the three parties to this area. Lake Havasu City's obligation was to put in a stoplight, put in some road work and road work infrastructure leading into the state park area. The state parks obligations were to work with a concessionaire to be able to open up the state park facility. And then the private developers are actually just a byproduct of all of this, and it now opens up the opportunity for them to develop their area. We ran into some hurdles when Governor Ducey fired the former state parks director that worked for him. That happened last summer?
A couple months back? Yeah.
So when they fired Sue Black at the time, it basically stopped everything that was happening within the state park system, including our project, which is so important to the future economy of Lake Havasu City. And so we were able to work with Governor Ducey the day he was there actually was a week after he had appointed a new state parks director. And we've had some great conversations with the new state parks director, and he's actually going to be visiting us in the next couple of weeks to tour the site and be able to work through some of the challenges that have arisen. So Lake Havasu City's performed its obligations, and that was the stoplight and the road work, and so we're hopeful that with these renewed conversations that we'll be able to get that project back on track and be able to open up the first Arizona State Park in 20 years. So the very first Arizona State Park product in 20 years will be opening here in Lake Havasu City. And then, of course, paving the way for the Comac family to realize that development that they've been working on for many years as well. So the governor also had the opportunity to do a ceremonial signing of the drought contingency plan. We were fortunate enough to have Mayor Tom Brady from Bullhead City and Mayor Jen Miles from Kingman, along with their city councils and our city council, were able to experience a ceremonial signing of the DCP, or the Drought Contingency Plan, which basically is water policy and water vision for the future to ensure that Arizona and the Colorado River Basin states have water resources, all provided by Colorado River and Lake Havasu City. Are there any other highlights from the governor's visit that you remember, Jess?
No, he talked to us about a lot of the things that were happening throughout the state and some of the issues that are coming up through the legislative process. But we were just lucky to have him, lucky to grab his ear. He's been very supportive of Lake Havasu City, and that's very important. So we continue to develop those relationships. I know you mentioned in your State of the City address that it was his first time back since walking the sheep over the bridge. So, but he's got some very fond memories of that, and we're lucky to have him.
Yes. Yeah, and the governor's visit, literally the next day, we had conversation with Arizona State Parks director, so it works. So anytime the Governor Ducey wants to come, he's more than welcome, and we'll make sure that we're ready and available for him. We also have had our planning retreat for the City Council. We did that in January. That was the first time that the City Council, led by myself as the mayor and the addition of Jim Dolan to our council, were able to have a conversation about planning and budget priorities and how we move Lake Havasu City forward. During some of those conversations, we were talking about the irrigation and drainage district, the IDD.
IDD, yeah.
Much easier to say that. Yeah. So the irrigation and drainage district, which was Lake Havasu City's first government, basically. So back in the early 70s, Robert McCulloch had an IDD, which basically acted as the organization that had taxing authority to put in sewer infrastructure and some of the basic early needs of our growing community. When Lake Havasu City incorporated in 1978, the IDD was set to expire. That was part of the vote of the people. However, they cannot expire with any debt, and they still had some debt for the infrastructure of the original sewer that was put in. Some of you may say, well, we just put the sewer in, which two things, that was almost 18, 19 years ago. So it just is relative in speaking. But originally, Lake Havasu City in the downtown area had always had sewer. So Smoke Tree, kind of those first housing tracts down in the where McDonald's is on Swanson, some of those areas initially had sewer from the very beginning. And when we did the sewer project in the early 2000s, that was the rest of the community and also updating those original facilities. So the IDD had some debt. Councils, long before us or any of us that are in office today, would refinance that debt in an effort to keep the IDD open and solvent, because it produces about $5.7 million to our water and wastewater system. So that $5.7 million ensures that we have clean water when we turn on the faucets, and our dirty water is taken to the proper place and treated and used appropriately. So it's really important that as a community, that $5.7 million is somebody has to pay for it, and it's going to be us. It's going to be us taxpayers. So there's a few ways that you can do that. You can do it the current way with the IDD, which is a property tax that we all pay on our property tax bill, or through the rates. So when we pay our monthly bill, it could just be divided among the rate payers and paid that way. So now that it's set to expire in 2022, because we can't refinance the debt, it's pretty marginal at this point. We are starting the conversation, and I know I did say 2022, but we're starting it now because it's so important that we get your feedback and understand what's important to you, the citizens of Lake Havasu City, on how to address this and tackle this issue. So a couple of ways we could do it is we could create a new district, not an IDD, that wouldn't be legal, but a water district or something along those lines, and continue doing what we do now. So it would be a new district voted on by the people, tax levels stay the same, contributes $5.7 million to the system, and we continue on. There's benefits to that. There's benefits that you get to write off on your taxes. The other benefit is it's just the way it's always been done. I know that's a benefit. People are used to it. But then there's the other way that we do it through rates, and our rates go up collectively through that $5.7 million. There's benefits to that. Folks that are landlords wouldn't have, their taxes would go down. You would know exactly what you're paying for, clear for all the rate users. So, there's just a lot of conversation we need to have. Today I bring it up more just so to kind of get familiar with the idea and the concept, and we'll have some additional conversations, multiple additional conversations before 2022 about what to do. But I'll let Jess talk about the rate study that you proposed, and that's kind of part of this process coming forward.
Yeah, too, and before that, I'll add to the conversation just a little bit, is that the existing district right now was created by Robert McCulloch, and we've grown past that district right now. So there's some residents that are within that district that are paying, contributing towards that rate, and there's some new development that's not. So if we came back and looked at a new district, that would encompass all of our residents. So the cost sharing would be spread out a little more than it is right now. So we've approached council and with regards to moving forward with the wastewater rate study, and we'd be doing that in next year's budget, which starts after July 1st. So, we've had some new infrastructure that's been placed, but we have some old infrastructure. We need to identify where we want to be as far as maintenance and new systems, and making sure that the service delivery for water and sewer is as reliable as it is today as it will be in 10, 15, 50 years from now. So we'll go through a wastewater rate study. So we'll identify our needs, we'll look at the IDD, and then through that process, identify some different solutions. So whether it's something we look at the rates, do we create a district and go to the voters and ask for a district? Because that's something that would have to be voted on by the residents. And really, we're just trying to create some options so we can come back at later dates, multiple times, and say these are the options. Here's some of the things that we can do, and be able to get the feedback that we need from the community.
Thank you. Yeah, we also talked about in that same session ball fields, and there's been a lot of discussion about ball fields within our community over the last several years. It started with pickleballers, and pickleballers were looking for some additional space to use. We actually didn't have any municipal pickleball courts whatsoever, and so we were able to address that out at Dick Sand Park. They still have some additional needs, certainly, but that was the first area that we were able to start. The soccer community was deficient in what their needs were. They were playing on the ASU field, which was not adequate. And because of the consistent play that was on that field, most of the field turned to dirt, and these children were playing in very dusty, dirty conditions, and also not having enough needs. So that is how we got to Cypress Park, which is a beautiful park addition to our area that basically takes care of the soccer community for the near future and what their needs are. A little side note: there's 1,000 families in Lake Havasu City have soccer players. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, and you use soccer. It's amazing. That doesn't even take into account our soccer, our high school soccer teams, which went to state this year, so they did really good. So that shows that program is feeding right up into the high school system. But now we have some deficiencies, immediate deficiencies in our ball fields for softball, baseball, those types of things, specifically in the collegiate size fields. And so we had plans to do some things out at Sarah Park. Basically a ball field complex that would, and it's in the master plan at Sarah Park to do so. We looked at doing some things, and we've looked at a few different ways and how to make it happen. But you are all familiar with Sarah Park and the topography out there. It's kind of a rolling hills, mountainous area, and the cost just to move the dirt and the earthwork is far outpaces what we have in the budget, or even resources we would have in the budget in future years. However, we do have a set aside that the council has prioritized over the last 2 budget years and is continuing to prioritize in our discussions this year that we can do some immediate ball fields, and that would be at the Island Ball Field. So currently around the island we have the multi-use path. In the center of that there's an Island Ball Field. A lot of the youth football programs have worked there. The soccer league plays out there. And then there's this baseball diamond that no one plays at. And it's because it doesn't really work. It's kind of dangerous. It has lots of ruts in it. No one really uses it other than children that are brothers or sisters of the people playing in the football program over there, killing time while their brother or sister is out there playing. So, but we can take the monies we have set in the budget and actually get something done immediately and get that field done. That would then allow us to have a collegiate field within the city's resources. At the same time, thank you to the voters of the School Bond Initiative, which is a different governmental agency, but the voters voted on the School Bond Initiative, and they're working on their field as well, which will have a collegiate field down at the high school facility. So we would basically add 2 collegiate fields to our inventory within the same period of time, which would help alleviate some of the initial needs while we continue to focus on some long-term solutions. So basically the conversation that we've been having is how do we take care of the resources we already have? It doesn't really make sense to go and build new resources or new facilities when we're not even taking care of a field that we all know is not operable, not usable, but it also allows us to have action. It allows us to do something immediately, and that's the will of the people that have been communicating with us over the last several years about the lack of field space that we have. I don't know if you had anything to address.
No, I guess just to highlight that if we move from the Sarah Park, which that ball field would be over budget, so we can do something on the island, which is the idea, and we'll have these discussions through the budget work sessions. But that project would come in under budget, so that's the most exciting part of the discussion there. And then to your point, as far as adding the 2 ball fields to the inventory, that would allow us to attract maybe some regional semi-pro teams that to the area that might people might find fun to watch and participate with. So.
We also have above the skies that you might have been hearing. The airplanes, we have been, we being like Havasu City, have been the host to the Royal Canadian Air Force training. They will be with us through this weekend. So they've been training and doing different training exercises within our area. It's been a great benefit from an economic standpoint to our community for the money that they're bringing in with their training dollars. But it also, long term, they are an ally of ours, and so certainly it's good that we have trained military forces that are familiar with our area. But it's been a great attraction to the area, and we're really fortunate to be able to have them. But some of the noise, I wouldn't say complaints, just noise concerns. I haven't really heard too many complaints, mostly just what is it? That'll be lasting through this weekend. So that's been a nice addition to Lake Havasu City over this winter. A couple of activities that we have going on in the city that we're excited to bring back Teen Break. Teen Break is in its 25th year. It's a rite of passage for teenagers in Lake Havasu City to celebrate their spring break time together at Rotary Park. Unfortunately, last year it did not happen, and we were under the understanding that some nonprofits and or other community organizations were going to take on different components of that to produce the event, and we found that that was not the case. And so, although Parks and Recreation did have a program, it wasn't Teen Break, and it wasn't what all of the kids of the past remember or the kids are looking for. So we're excited to bring it back for its 25th year. Again, it'll be at Rotary during spring break of the Unified School District. So all the schools have the same spring break. If you have children or grandchildren that are interested, registration is taking place. You can call Parks and Recreation at 928-453-8686 and make reservations for your child to participate. We do anticipate it to sell out, so make sure that you get those reservations if you're interested. And then we also have a program for the K-6 as well. So if you're interested in, if your child's kindergarten through 6th grade, it won't be Teen Break, but there still is services available for childcare for the 5 days during spring break. You can call the same number again, 928-453-8686, and make reservations for that as well. So this week we also had Neighborhood Watch Night Out, which is very exciting. We have some very active neighborhood watches within our community. One of the most active is actually led by Vice Mayor Lane, who's here. I think he gave up his seat, but he is here today. But we have multiple neighborhood watch programs. If you are interested in Neighborhood Watch, please stop by and see one of us after today, or reach out to your council members or your mayor, and we can talk about the Neighborhood Watch program to you. We can put you in touch with your Neighborhood Watch organization, and if there isn't one in your neighborhood, we can help you start one. And so these are very active folks that participate in community spirit and collaboration with each other, and they get together for social events, and they get together and basically care for each other. And so they're the folks that pick up your newspaper when you're on vacation if you didn't call and stop the subscription, or they're the ones that might bring up your garbage cans if you're unable to do so. But it allows you to build relationships with your neighbors, and also makes our communities and our neighborhoods stronger. So we're excited to participate in that program this past week. And again, if you have any interest, stop by, see Jess, any of your council members. We'd be happy to explain how we can get a neighborhood watch in your area. Did you want to talk a little bit about the census coming up?
Sure. So 2019, we're a full year out. Today's the first day of March, believe it or not, but April 1st of 2020 is Census Day. And I think that we want to talk about it a little bit today, and there'll be some ongoing efforts as we get closer to that day. But it's going to be important for Lake Havasu City to be represented in the census. So we're going to be encouraging our residents to fill out that census. There's benefits. There's many benefits, but the ones that we're going to highlight is one: the higher the population Lake Havasu City and in the region, Mojave County, means we're better representative through our different districts. So Congress and our local legislature, but directly for the city, what's important for us is that monies flow from the state to the cities and counties based on what's called state share revenues, and all those are based on population. So every year it changes just a little bit, but right now it's about cities across the state receive on average this year about $220 per person per year. So, and we use those dollars are essential for the city to provide public safety and all the other services that the city does provide. If we're well represented with the census, that's going to allow us to maintain the low tax rate and base that we have right now. but it's going to be essential for us to be well representative through that process. We already pay gas tax, we already pay income tax, we already pay sales tax into the state. So let's get those dollars back into Lake Havasu City, and we can do that by checking that box for Lake Havasu City. And what's going to be unique for Havasu compared to other cities in Arizona is the census asks that if wherever you live for 6 months plus 1 day, you're supposed to check that box for Lake Havasu City or wherever that destination might be. We have a lot of seasonal residents that come to Havasu. Maybe they're staying for 7-8 months. So we're going to be encouraging those folks to check the box for Lake Havasu City, where they might be checking that box for, where they have their other home or maybe where the grandkids live. So we won't belabor it here today, but we certainly will later. So we're going to be encouraging folks to help us through that process. Right now we're about 56,000 population, and because we're represented that way, again, it brings dollars into the city with taxes that you already pay through the state. So I'll let that one go.
Thank you. And then we also continue to monitor the state legislature, which they're in session right now. There's a few bills that are kind of going through, and the great news is we have great representation for our district at the legislature. But there's still some bills that people other than our legislators are trying to put through that don't make any sense for us or our region. So a couple that we're monitoring closely is the short-term rental bill, which allows cities the opportunity to regulate short-term rentals or vacation rentals in a way that's appropriate for their community. And Lake Havasu City has an ordinance that we addressed about 2.5 years ago that really works for our citizens. It allows our citizens, basically, if there's a vacation rental, the neighbors next to them, the ability to have some ways and mechanisms so that there isn't loud noise, there isn't a lot of traffic and a lot of trash and some of those types of things that have been an issue for some of our residents. And nothing against vacationers and nothing against folks that are vacationing in our neighborhoods. But when I'm on vacation, I stay up just a little bit later, and I might be talking on the pool deck, and those voices carry in the desert. And so it could be a normal conversation that somebody's having that it's at 1 a.m. is not good for us that have to get up in the morning and go to work, or those of us that are trying to enjoy the quiet enjoyment of our homes. So we're monitoring that bill, and we've had great success with our legislators that are representing our district and other efforts in that. There's also a bill that is looking at municipal elections. Basically, the mayor and city council is nonpartisan, meaning no party affiliation. Obviously, we all have a party affiliation, and obviously you as voters ask all of us what our affiliation is during the campaign season. But local government is working. It works, and it works because we don't have party-specific potholes, and we don't have party-specific quality of life issues. We can just get together, work, and not get involved in all of the politics of it all. What's best for Lake Havasu City, and we just address it. And so we want to keep them nonpartisan for that reason, because it is the level of government that is working. And it's also closest to the people. So, but we'll continue to monitor it and be able to report back to you on what's going on and what's important for Lake Havasu City. We do have an event coming up, Vietnam Veterans Breakfast. So if anyone's interested and you are a veteran, it's on March 29th. Doors open at 8:30. It's at London Bridge Resort, and it's a free breakfast for all veterans. It's commemorating Vietnam veterans. And it honors all of our service members. So if you're interested, come on down. There is no RSVP needed. So yeah, just come on down, and we'd love to have you. Before we get into questions from each of you, I'd like to do some introductions. So we have, first we have Senator Sonny Borelli, who's joining us, coming from the legislature. So welcome Senator Sonny Borelli. We also have Vice Mayor Lane over here. Thank you for being here. We have Councilmember McCoy is with us. And then Councilmember Koch is here as well. Yeah, I saw her somewhere. Yeah. Councilmember Koch is here. Thank you for being here. Yeah. And then one mention, I have Tristan Bartels is here as well. He's in the back. He's a political science major from ASU. And he has participated with Councilmember Lynn and myself over the last council meeting session, and so he helped with setting the agenda and how that works. So he worked with us as electeds, and he also worked with staff. He then followed it through with the council meeting that we had last Tuesday, and now he's here for seeing how we do some community outreach. So this is a product of Lake Havasu City and a product of our ASU campus, so thank you for being here. Senator Borelli, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but would you like to say a few words about what's going on in your world? You got to come on up and stand awkwardly close to us so that the folks at home can hear as well.
I just came here for the coffee and wanted to see what real good government looks like, because Phoenix is chaotic, and it's just amazing how things work over there. And just like the mayor had said, you know, here locally, you don't really get into the crazy politics like you do at the state capitol, even the U.S. Capitol, which is, I think they need to stay on the East Coast. Anyway, yeah, a lot of politics. We got people over there that will politic 2 raindrops on a window. So, this is where it really happens, because the decisions that are made here affect our lives on a daily basis, and this is where government closest to the people actually works best. So, yeah. Of course, I come here to also see the mayor, so that way we can converse over a couple of the bills he's discussing. We text a lot over the internet and on the phone. But I just want to assure you that our newest representative, Leo Biasucci, he's a freshman, and he's doing a phenomenal job. He's been a great teammate and asset for us in this district. It's just amazing this last election cycle, how many freshman legislators, they didn't elect legislators, they elected activists. So this is going to drag out to the calendar. Hopefully we can keep things moving along. The House, that's just the House. We have a new hashtag. I'm glad I'm in the Senate. But they'll literally drag out the calendar for a couple weeks. But we start our small budget meetings next week, but the Senate's moving along, and we're getting things accomplished. And there's a few bills that made it out of the Senate that need to die over in the House, which we will discuss which ones, and that's the strategy. Some of these things. But anyway, I'm available for questions.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
Chuck.
Chuck.
Yeah, can you give us an update on the auto fee and the gas tax?
Very good.
Yeah.
Good question. You want to answer it?
I think everybody wants to answer.
Senator Ugenti Rita, she introduced a bill to actually repeal that, and it made it out of the Senate, so it's over in the House. So we start sending it's crossover week next week, and in a couple weeks, sending all the Senate bills over, and then we get all the House bills. So we don't know how that's going to play out over in the House, because the makeup is 31 Republicans, 29 Democrats, and all it takes is just to yank one Republican off, and that's how bills die. So we'll see how that plays out. Representative Biasucci introduced a bill to actually repeal an exemption on the electric vehicles, because there's no parity whatsoever. So they get a huge exemptions. We're trying to bring that up. Some will say that's a tax increase, and we were saying that's deregulating. So you can see how some of these arguments can be. So that's moving through, and there's a few alternate vehicle taxes that went through last year. That the actual tax is just phenomenal on the alternate fuels on the gasoline consumption, or that fuel consumption. So these are a lot of things that are being worked out now, and we'll see how it plays out in the House.
I heard that they were dropping the gas tax, but they're leaving the tax on propane and stuff like that.
Yeah, the alternative fuels, that's a formula that's being reworked, because what went through last year was crazy. So, but the gas tax one that's coming, if it makes it out of the House, I'll really be surprised, but it's not going to move in the Senate, because I think raising gasoline taxes is not the way to go, especially when gas consumption is down, and then of course fuel efficiency is up. So really, it doesn't pencil out. We have to find another way that's parity, fair and equal to everybody. So the alternative vehicles on registration and electric vehicles, that needs to be, we need to look at that really seriously. So anyway, but we're working on it, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
I saw on the internet something about Kristen Simoneau voting for a bill to not allow babies that survive abortions to have medical services. Do you know anything about that?
Right. Yeah, that's Washington, D.C. She voted to allow a baby that survived an abortion to die on the table.
That's for Arizona.
Pardon?
And that's for Arizona?
It's,
No,
yeah, that's
that was,
federal.
that was a federal one.
That's federal.
But one of the Democrat representatives introduced a bill to do the same thing, just like Virginia and New York did. And the chair heard the bill, and of course, immediately when it was assigned to the committee to be heard, then the sponsor was screaming and complaining they didn't want the bill to be heard. Well, the bill, you introduced the bill, it has merit, let's hear it. They're always complaining that we never hear bills. And of course, you know, they said it was a drafting error, but it wasn't a drafting error. That's just a BS excuse, because 17 of their caucus members signed on to the bill as a sponsor. 2 of them are doctors. One's a former prosecutor. So they say that they didn't read the bill and there's a grammatical error. By the way, we can fix grammatical errors. But anyway, so that bill completely died in the House. But it's amazing. And that's one of the things that the activists do. And that's why I said they didn't elect legislators, they elected activists. They introduce a bunch of bills and then blame the evil Republicans for not hearing the bill. And once we start hearing their bills, then they complain. So, okay, well, fine. It is. It's just simple. But yeah, I think it was very, yeah, that was a really bad idea. So let's let a baby die after it survives.
Sick idea.
Yeah.
Sir?
Legislative immunity.
So the question is legislative immunity, just for the folks at home.
Legislative immunity is never, ever, and does not ever get you out of a speeding ticket. Okay? I've been pulled over before, and I do it just like everybody else. I beg for forgiveness, and then allow myself to get scolded, and then throw my mercy on the officer, and they just laugh at me, and But I've never used my position to get out of the citation. It's too embarrassing, especially when you're the chairman of Military Affairs and Public Safety, and you're just kind of going real fast. I don't care if you're on the phone with Congressman Gosar. It was a half hour of getting chewed out, but that's another story. Legislative immunity does not get you out of a citation. What it's designed for is you're not going to be encumbered going into court during when we're in session. Here's an example: is we had one representative whose ex-spouse decided to sue while they were in session to try to leverage them and drag them into court. Even the same thing. If legislative immunity was gone, we'd be yanking for jury duty and all kinds of things like that. And it just opens up Pandora's box. So there really is no legislative immunity to get out of criminal activity, even a citation. So, but anyway, it's a lot more to it.
And Governor Ducey also signed an executive order ensuring that people enforce the laws. So, sir?
Yes, texting and driving, where are we at on that?
Well, there's 2 bills. There are 2 competing bills. One's a distracted driving, which I don't like because it opens up too many other things on probable cause and everything else like that. But there is a texting and driving one that's going through the Senate. I believe we're going to be voting on it next week. But that seems to be moving. I'm not too keen on a lot of it, but I understand the necessity of it. There's some things that we might need to fine tune in that bill because I think the initial fine is a little excessive. For an example, the city has an ordinance on a skateboard ordinance. It's $25 fine, but by the time you go and pay that fine, there's all the other fees that's tacked onto it. It comes out to $99.05. I know. I had to pay one of my son's fines for skateboarding. He still owes me $99. He gave me the nickel. But these are the kind of things that a lot of people, that unintended consequences, that we don't look at how the fines are and everything like that. Because that $75 could end up being $300 by the time you add on the court costs and clean election and probation fees, there's all kinds of court fees and everything else. So that thing could be extremely excessive. We need to come up with something that's going to have some type of parity because a lot of the cities are invoking their own ordinances. So if you're driving through one town and you just don't know, you might be breaking the law or that ordinance. So we're trying to get that fair and balance in there. So it's moving.
Yes.
Is there a chance in the future or near future of us ever getting the airline back here again?
Yeah, I'll answer that question after we let Senator Borelli finish some state issues, and I'll answer about the airport. Yeah, Chuck, did you have a state issue for Senator Borelli? Chuck? Yes.
Yeah, is that a texting law or is that a hands-free law?
It's pretty much the hands-free, using hands-free device.
So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter just texting, it could be listening, talking on your phone or whatever.
Yeah, a handheld device.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Senator Borelli. We appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yes. Senator Borelli is the majority whip, so he's a big deal. So you know a big deal, and could not be a stronger champion for Lake Havasu City and rural Arizona. He does an amazing job. So thank you, Sonny. The session just ends, and he races back here to join us this morning from Phoenix. So
No racing.
he goes the speed limit the whole way. But thank you so much, Senator Borelli.
Time the night before.
And then, of course, as he mentioned, Representative Biasucci, who's also from Lake Havasu City, is doing a fantastic job for us. And Representative Cobb lives in Kingman. She also represents us and is very accessible to us as well. So we appreciate all of the hard work you're doing for Lake Havasu City. So at this point, we'll answer any questions of Lake Havasu City, and we'll start with commercial air service to the airport. So there was a question about, is there ever a chance of getting commercial air service? And the answer is yes. Is it going to be easy? No. Bullhead City ran, it's the Bullhead City Laughlin International Airport, ran, I guess, a test, we could call it, last year with American Airlines. And they had one flight that went from Bullhead City Laughlin Airport down to Phoenix. A lot of people have things to say about it. The timing was wrong. It wasn't the right flight schedule. It wasn't this, it wasn't that. But nonetheless, they had it, and it didn't work. And they had all of the casinos to help support them, and were able to do some things. So as transportation changes, so that the whole face of transportation, all modes of that, in 3 to 5 years, we'll be driving on roadways without a driver in the driver's seat. And so some of that will change what public transportation looks like, and some air traffic as well. We understand it's important to economic development. We understand it's important to our citizens. And we also are working through our general plan update at the airport, which is required every 10 years to continue to receive grant funding. And commercial air service is in that general plan. So I know that's a non-answer answer, but it's a priority for us, and we are working on it. And there is hope. But
why did we lose it originally?
the air service grants. A lot of things change when a city gets to 50,000 residents. And the way air service grants were working, we lost the grant, which helped subsidize some of that in the past. And then, of course, air traffic has changed as well. Even if you are taking a regular route from Las Vegas or Phoenix Airport somewhere, it changes seasonally nowadays. It's just not, the flight access is not as available as it used to be. And so that's what changed here in Lake Havasu City. So any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Pat Miller. I'm a resident here for quite a few years. I've had a California real estate broker's license for 35 years, so I've seen a lot of building projects. And I have to say, I'm just seeing the worst building project I've ever seen on Kearsarge and Lobo. There's 8 apartment units just going in there in 2 buildings. And the back of the first building fronts right onto Kearsarge. So we're going to see everybody's trash sitting out behind what's behind their unit. I've never seen another city that allows the back of a project face the street. And if it does, there has to be a privacy wall, because there's valuable homes being built here in this town. But when you drive somebody around and you pass units that are backing onto the street with all this trash there, it really affects the value of the surrounding properties. And so there's another unit at the corner of Lost Dutchman and Kearsarge, which has been there for a number of years. And it's so unsightly, the back side of it facing onto the street and facing a very nice condo complex across the street. So I would have to say there needs to be an improvement in the planning department's decisions not to allow this stuff to happen. These two buildings, incidentally, are only like 10 feet apart, and they face inward. Their front doors face in there. And then to cap it off, there's a great big transmission box at the street facing this alleyway down between these two buildings. It's a shocking placement of buildings on a lot, because then there's all this space behind the buildings now, obviously for parking, but they could have relocated these buildings around the lot to make it more accessible for their tenants. It's just a really bad plan. And I hate to see stuff like that just starting now. It's going to sit there for 30 years. And we shouldn't be making decisions like that.
Well, thank you for your comment. This is more of a comment for the folks watching on TV about some of the zoning issues and how buildings are situated on lots. Just to address it in a very global perspective, I'm not familiar with the site directly, but we'll look into it. Is the general plan basically dictates how zoning and building occurs within a community. Our general plan was just updated in 2016. That was by the vote of the people. This particular neighborhood, the part I am familiar with, is it is multifamily, so it is intended for high density uses such as multifamily housing, apartments, condos, duplexes, those types of things. Which the particular area of Carthage is full of those types of projects and developments. But we can take a look at some of the codes about placement and of trash, trash areas and coverage and those types of things, and we'll look into that.
Yeah, there needs to be a privacy wall. If they're going to be, if they shouldn't be doing that, but if they do it, there should be a 6-foot wall.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate bringing it to our attention, and we'll look into it. Yes.
Are there any new businesses coming to town?
I knew it. I just said it. It's so funny. I said to him, I said, "Hey, do you have any?" And he said, "No, thanks for giving me like 2 minutes warning." So I will answer the question the way I answer it every month. It's a fallacy that the city council and the mayor are in control of what businesses come and go in Lake Havasu City. We don't have that, but we can have the ability to work with different organizations and different folks to encourage them to relocate their business here or bring their service to Lake Havasu City. So a couple of things that right off the top of my head, because when we prepared this week, we did not work on that, but this might be a good opportunity to talk about the mall project. So I did mention the coffee drive-through area that's on Jamaica and McCulloch. That's building, that's actually going vertical. The Starbucks that's going across from Jack in the Box on Lake Havasu Avenue, that's moving. So there are those types of things, but the mall is the most exciting thing right now. So we have, there's a lot of people that believe that the mall was sold and purchased, and which is true, but let me give you the whole context to that. There was 4 folks that owned the mall, 2 different partnership groups. And so those 2 different partnership groups are still involved at the mall. And they basically divided their holdings and own most of the occupied buildings. So where JCPenney's, Dillard's, K Brewers, the movie theater, all that stuff was retained in ownership by those original folks that purchased it several years ago. Now, the mall proper, which is basically the interior kind of courtyard area, is the area that we're talking about specifically that was recently purchased by a local Lake Havasu City resident that's a graduate of Lake Havasu High School and is going to develop that area and combine it with an omni-channel retail model. Which an omni-channel retail model is happening everywhere. So where we're at today, if you shop at Walmart or Kohl's or wherever it may be, you might make this order at the store in a brick and mortar facility. You might make it online. And when that's sent, the system send it to whatever store might have that inventory, and that store packs it up, ships it, puts it in a shipping box and sends it out. So our local JCPenney's and Dillard's and Walmart are doing this omni-channel retailing today, because that's just part of the business model. So we have actually with us today, Tom Sanders in the back of the room is one of the omnichannel. I'm going to stand up, Tom. Sorry to put you on the spot, but also a local Lake Havasu, born and raised here. So and Tom is investing in the mall and purchased an area, or is in the process of, that is going to move his omnichannel retailer into this mall space. He and his wife Megan are top 50 Amazon retailers. They're a big deal in the omnichannel space. Basically, innovators of that space, and we're so happy that they chose to stay in Lake Havasu City and are going to continue to be it. But they're going to move their business out there, which will have a retail area where you can go and shop. It'll be a small place where you can touch, feel, purchase. And then in the back, which the majority of the space will be used for omni-channel retailing, where folks might have purchased online or from their mobile phone or from the Facebook app or whatever it might have been. And that will fill up, and that'll be what we're calling the employment sector of the mall. The next one will be entertainment. So there's a focus of entertainment out there, which would be where the courtyard is in front of the movie theater. There's a little fountain there and a playground. They'll in the process of attracting restaurants that would kind of anchor this entertainment zone. And then as you move closer towards Walmart, that would be the retail zone, which is more retailers like we're used to, like a traditional brick and mortar, still in the omnichannel space, but more focused on the retail side of things. So that's a really exciting project that's in the process of moving forward. It's going through the process of planning and zoning to make sure that it's the right usage and the neighborhood is ready and set for this area, and that will kind of start the redevelopment of the beautiful mall space that just never took off. And a lot of people say, well, why didn't it take off? And it didn't take off because of each one of us. It just sometimes is easier to grab our iPad or grab our computer and go to the online website or where it might, and put it in your shopping cart and send it to your house. We did that. As consumers, we did that. And so as we drove that away, these brick and mortar stores can't make it anymore. They just can't afford it, because we want instant gratification, we want it now, and we want what we want when we want it. And so that's all right, but they now need to respond. So malls are not what they used to be. I still sometimes have residents say, well, the mall would just be successful if it was indoors and I could go walk. Well, walkers are great, and we love that you're being fitness-minded, but walkers don't pay the bills. And my AC bill is pretty expensive, so imagine what a mall AC bill would be. So, yes?
Have you considered a shuttle at any time? Because I have elderly friends that don't even want to drive up there 12 miles. It's like a 25-mile round trip for me. It's so far out of our area where we travel every day.
Yeah, so the question is revolved around transit, and we are actually in the process of a 12-month transit study that is being conducted by the Metropolitan Planning Organization. There is a survey. Vice Mayor Lane, is it closed now?
No, we extended it because we have a new partner with the MPO, with the Lake Havasu Unified School District, because they can access some funds. So we've actually extended it to March the 8th.
Okay. So there still is an online survey available on the city's website.
You can go to city's website, lhcaz.gov, and then on the front there, you'll see a couple different ways of clicking on a box and telling us what you think about transit. Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? So we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and what you'd like to do. But today what we offer in ways of getting citizens around is we have Havasu Mobility, which is available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It gets residents to their doctor's appointments and to grocery stores. There also is a weekly trip out to the mall area, and then also there's some senior center transportation as well to get to lunches and socialization. So, but we are looking into that. Sir?
I know there's no zoning law in the city, but we have a house that's sold next to us. On just a normal sized lot, they have an RV, 2 large trucks, a large trailer, 5 cars, and it just trashes the whole area. But there's nothing to stop that from happening. They just barely fit on the lot, actually.
Yeah, it's as our community infills, some of these challenges are coming up more and more. Lake Havasu City's always had a strong focus to allow residents to use their property for the way that they want to use their property. And so we've had discussions since I've been on council. We've done it 2 times. and you want to fill up a council chambers, let's talk about that. And so right now residents are still focused on allowing the enjoyment of their area. What I always say when people call me, because the most calls I get are neighborhood calls. I usually say, did you talk to your neighbor? They might not even know it bothers you. Yeah, you have?
Yeah, they said you're gonna have to live with it.
Oh yeah, so you don't have one of the good neighbors, but but for the rest of folks, listening in here, just talk to your neighbor and ask them, let them know. They might not even know. And I've explained this story in the past, and when I moved into my house, I live on a very busy road, and my neighbor in their backyard, they basically drove back there, parked all their cars, had all these canopies with the tethered canopies that were rotting in the sun, and all sorts of nonsense back there. I spent my time in the backyard. But I was just so fortunate it was in the front yard, and it made our front yards look all right. It didn't bother me, but we got along just fine, and they would bring in my garbage can if I was vacationing, and I'd do the same for them, and so we had a compromise. So, but that's usually the best way to handle it. Come see us afterwards. We'll talk specific about yours and see what we can do to help you. Yes?
So, I need a little help here. This is not going to be a city thing, but the city can direct it. I'm a motorcyclist, and I've been living here 7 years, and I learned to live with it. If you're going south on 95, and you come up to the turn lane to turn left onto Coma, an automobile would never know it's there. There's a big slug of blacktop right in the center of the road, and it stands up probably about that high, and it'll throw a motorcyclist. And I've been thrown twice before I finally figured out, stay away from it. All we got to do is they could just come along with a shovel and break that hump up. Could you pass it on to the DOT to take a look at that? It's about, it's probably that tall, and it's probably a foot and a half long, and driving a car, you'd never know it's there. But with a motorcycle, it's really a dangerous thing, and you gotta pay attention to it, because it will throw you off on balance. If you could pass along to the DOT, see if they could, it would take up to take a shovel and just break that little hump out of there.
Yep, we'll pass along. Actually, Jess and I had a conversation with the ADOT coordinator about that whole area, from basically Acoma on 95 up through the Kiowa intersection where that asphalt is.
I think what it probably was a slug that come out of the paver when they were paving. It's been there for a long time, but it is really dangerous for a motorcyclist.
I think you're talking about South Tacoma.
South Tacoma, 95?
South Tacoma.
Oh, thank you for clarifying.
Okay. South Tacoma.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
And you're 95, and you'll be turning left onto Acoma by Terribles. And it's right in the center of the turning lane. As they say, being a car, you'd never know it's there, but on a motorcycle, you find out real quick that it's there.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, we'll do.
What is the maximum number of build out of new homes for Lake Havasu? Projected number?
Well, I can give you population, and we'll see if Jess has structures. You get the hard side.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. 96,000 people is what we have for water and land.
So right now we have about, according to the last census, about 23,000 dwelling units in Lake Havasu City. So, and if we're looking at if all things stayed the same as far as technologies for water conservation, that's the limitation. Obviously, we have limitations with BLM and our ability to expand. So as Havasu grows, we're going to see densities increase, and we're going to see a little more elevation with some of these projects. So it's kind of hard to determine as far as what those dwelling units are. But we're at 23,000 right now. You're probably looking in the vicinity of about 40,000, somewhere in that time frame. We have about, if you count all of our empty parcels here in Lake Havasu City, we have about 4,200 that are left. That's it. Once that's gone, our inventory is gone. There's no other vacant land to build on. And then eventually we'll get to the point where we have some 4,000 acres of state trust land on the northern side between our residential areas and where the airport's at. Eventually, whether that's 5, 10, or 50 years from now, that'll get auctioned off, and then we'll see some inventory out in that area. But that's it. And unless we get some help with relief from maybe some BLM land or other land that can help us out. So, is that, Senator, I saw your hand up. Is that kind of where you were going with that, or no? Okay. I have lots of hands here. Yeah.
Having come from California, I have a house still up in the Sierras. And in July, and that's where the snowpack provides the water for Southern California. And then in July, we get restricted, and we get fined if we go over our reduced amount. So then I go to Southern California, and guys are washing their trucks, and there's water running down the street.
Sure.
I mean, for you to say you're going to build so many houses here, it seems to me the first priority is there going to be enough water? We're already
All
here.
these estimates are based on that, working backwards. So we know what our water allotment is, we know what we can sustain as far as development, and then we work backwards from that number to identify the population that we can provide services for.
But in the news, in the last 2 weeks, I've heard that the states are going to have to renegotiate their water allowances because the Colorado River isn't running as high now
Correct.
as it did 20 years
Yeah,
ago.
we addressed that with the drought contingency plan that we talked about with the governor. So yeah, our water rights and entitlements are what we're speaking of today. And even if we were to get restrictions as outlined in the DCP, the first level of restrictions would have, it could be called a paper shortage. It wouldn't have an impact on us immediately, but we certainly would want to address some of the things we've done. Lake Havasu City is a phenomenal conservator of water. Absolutely amazing conservators of water. So we're doing our part. We continue to do our part, and we'll move forward doing that. Sir.
So you have plans for maximum population of full-time residents. So when we get our winter visitors, now what? Now you've got a whole lot more people using water that is not there. I mean, really, I mean, you get down to it, it's not there when you all of a sudden put that population up.
Yeah, so 96,000 residents is.
Doesn't seem to add up to me.
Yeah, well, they all stay somewhere. So 96,000 residents. So in the wintertime, we have people that are staying in homes and condos of folks that own them and use them in the summertime. So that's kind of a shift and a crossover. So it is the correct number. The visitation is included in some of these calculations.
And think about that, if I can, to your point exactly, because think about that. If we have winter visitors and we have short-term vacation rentals, so the people that are in those properties are using less water because they're not there full time. So yeah, we've taken all that into consideration, but that's actually less water usage if you take into account our winter visitors and short-term
I look at all
rentals.
these RV parks around here in the summer,
Of course.
they're empty, and you can't squeeze a mouse into any one of those places now.
Yeah.
Sure.
And they're all using water and the sewer.
Yes.
Yep.
And when we hit our maximum full-time residents, and those people are still coming down here.
Yeah, no, we're taking all those things into account, and I don't want the 96,000 to scare anyone because it's not happening tomorrow, and it's not even in 10 years. So we are talking very long-range planning processes here. Sir?
Yes, I've addressed this twice before in these meetings. When are the police and fire department gonna get a raise? It's been a while, they need a raise, and what my problem is, these people will eventually leave this city and go to another place, Phoenix, wherever, and this city is so hard to actually know the city, the streets and everything. I've been here 4 years and I can't find anything yet. So, I mean, we need to seriously think about getting our police, fire department a raise.
Yeah, so the question is about raises for public safety. We do have a process that we're working through right now. We're working on a positional analysis that is for our entire city staff. So absolutely, our police and fire and our first responders do a tremendous job, and they are so important to what we do. They're the first ones to respond when a resident is in dire need, and we appreciate their services. But we also appreciate the services of the folks that make sure your dirty water when you flush the toilet goes down and is treated, and the folks that are fixing the roads that you mentioned, and the folks that are taking care of our children after school, and all of those services as well that are provided by the city government. So Jess and his team have been working on a positional analysis due to the expenditure limitation that we had this year that fortunately the voters voted in favor of Prop 409. We weren't able to do it in this budget year. And so what Jess and his team are working on is putting together the RFP to have the positional analysis start immediately on July 1 once council approves the new budget and the new fiscal year starts, which would allow that positional analysis to provide data to Jess and the mayor and city council to make decisions for the future budget years. So we've been steadfast on what it is we're doing, and we're continuing to work in that direction. Do you have a follow-up question?
Let me follow up here saying, okay, let's not get the city government, we'll bypass that and put it to the people and say, hey, how about a half-cent extra tax on our city taxes? And if it's approved, it's great. I mean,
It won't pass. I
that
won't
goes
vote for it.
straight. That goes straight to the city fire department, them services, their pensions, stuff like that. How about that?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the feedback, and we hear you. Yes, sir.
Are we still holding on to a $60 million deficit for pension due to?
Liability?
Yeah, I'll let you.
And you
Yeah.
borrowed $10 million to pay, I don't know how that.
A little bit more, but I'll let Jess address that.
So yeah, we do have a very large pension liability. The liability is due to a couple of factors. Primarily, there is a statewide pension board that's responsible for how the different investments and the dollars flow through there. And based on some decisions in the last 10, 15 years, they haven't done so great. And because of that, they've pushed some of the liability back on cities and towns. So we're addressing it. With regards to the 10, is actually about $12 million that the city bonded for to pay 2 years worth. We pay $6 million a year towards that cost. And we had to borrow some of those dollars to make 2 years worth of payments just to get around the expense limitation, which is something that Prop 409 addressed.
But how is it possible the city of Orange Incorporated for 40 years has accumulated $60 million of debt?
So where you see, it kind of goes back to the previous question, where you see the highest liabilities in cities and towns in Arizona is where we do a good job with retaining our employees. So when we hire that 18, 19-year-old employee that comes and work for police and fire, we build up. We want that. We want that retention. We love that loyalty, and we love the love for the community. But that's a liability that the city is paying every year that goes through. If those employees in other communities that aren't able to retain their employees and they move to other cities, you're seeing that liability decrease. So it's a combination of that as a factor, but it's also, I'm going back to that pension board. They've haven't been very great at the way they've invested their dollars. And it's real difficult for the city to take a look at that and say, we need to start paying them more money to lessen our liability, and with the thinking that that's going to somehow change the way that they invest their dollars. So there's a few things there. It's not an imminent threat. We don't have a bill due that if we don't pay it, we're all going to have to raise these taxes. It's an issue that we work through, we're aware of. If all of our police and fire right now, if they all immediately today all retired, we'd be in trouble. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. So that's reflective of that number there.
Yeah, and the pension board, it has a new fund manager, and I met with him, and I'm a little bit I'm more confident in his abilities to right that ship. So the city is in a fairly good position when you compare our city compared to the other 91 cities and towns in the state of Arizona. We're in a pretty good position. It's still a liability that we need to be concerned of, and as Jess mentioned, we are working through it. So thank you for the question, Shannon.
So, Cal?
Yeah, sorry, Vice Mayor Lane.
No, just to address this gentleman, and Jess, you may be able to address it better than I have. One of the things he stated was that they have not had a pay raise.
Oh yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
That is not, actually, that is not correct.
That's we have step increases that all our employees, including police and fire, have enjoyed for years. I think there were suspension of some of the pay increases when times were tough, when the recession hit, but it's been multiple years of step increases for all of our employees, including police and fire. Every year.
Senator Brawley.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Going back to the good neighbor policy, we had a lot of rain. And of course, with all that rain, becomes a lot of weeds, especially in the front yard. So I'm just asking, as a good neighbor, since I'm going to be in Phoenix a lot.
You want me to spray your yard?
I took a shot.
Yeah, nice try.
Let's talk about those bills.
Yes. If I was your next door neighbor, I'd help you out. But Shannon?
This is a as quite as important as the last couple of questions and more of an observation and my own curiosity. But I travel Kiowa a lot. And at, I think it's Kiowa and Avalon, there's some empty lots right there on the corner. And I noticed the other day that there was an RV parked there. And obviously people were living there because there was chairs set out and everything. Yesterday I noticed there's 2 now. I've never seen that before in town. But I assume if you own your own lot, you can do that, right?
Well, there are some restrictions. I drove by there this morning to come here. No, I actually didn't see it this morning.
Unless I left since yesterday, I don't
Yeah.
know. But I was going to Subway yesterday, and so I noticed there was a second one there.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
as far as camping throughout the community, there are some ordinances against that. If you see that
I've
and
never
it's a
seen that
nuisance,
before.
reach out to code enforcement and we'll address
And
it.
then I had talking to some residents out in Crystal Beach, and they were telling me about the BMO land, that people are camping there too, and they don't have permits. And have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, we've actually have residents have asked us lots of questions about that. We're surrounded by, like Havasu City is surrounded by Arizona State Trust land and also BLM land. So it depends on what agency is responsible for it, but you are allowed to camp within those communities. And the BLM land, I think you have to get a permit. Is that correct?
14 days.
Yeah, I thought so.
You do not have to have a permit, but we do have a 14-day limit.
Okay, so if you can only stay in one site for 14 days
That's
before you have to
BLM,
mow.
yeah.
That's BLM, okay.
Yes. And then Arizona State Trust land, I'm not sure if they're specific. Is it the same?
It's real close,
Yeah,
although
there's
it's
a day limit.
enforced to a much less degree.
Yeah, so.
Something I never thought about before, but just, it came up, and I thought, I don't have to ask Cal.
Yeah, within city proper though, there are some
Okay.
ordinances.
If you see something like that, call code enforcement to let us address it.
Yeah, we'll take care of that. Chuck?
Unfortunately, that's county.
Yeah, when you mentioned that the city doesn't have say whether what businesses come in, also the fallacy about other businesses that keeps other businesses out.
Yeah.
That's a big fallacy also.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Chuck is bringing up where earlier we had mentioned that city council does not control the businesses that come and go. Certainly having good, solid, stable leadership within your community helps people when they're making their decisions for your community. But Chuck brings up the point of other businesses and or industry keeping specific other industries or brands out. Although that they probably would like that authority or that ability, it's not true. So thank you for bringing that up. So there is no restaurant group that's prohibiting some other restaurants from coming to Lake Havasu City.
Also, there's been people complaining about where they put the new center divider in between Industrial and South Palo Verde.
Correct.
That some vehicles are just driving right over the center divider to get to, and they're driving north to turn into the car wash and stuff like that. They might want to check into that they're just driving right over it.
Yeah, no, and that's we're working with that. And that's what Jess's office is working with those businesses in that area. And we're also working on some reflective
Put those
stuff.
little plastic things up all down through there or something, to keep them from going through there.
Yeah, no, we're working on some mitigation efforts for that. Yes, ma'am.
And talking about the reflective issue on those mediums, at night, you cannot see them.
Agreed.
And if you're not prepared for that with our, we don't have street lighting anyway, and then it's really a danger. And are they going to put reflection all the way down, not just at the ends? You can see them, they're at the ends, but in the middle.
Yeah, Jess is going to work with that. Yeah.
So we're hearing all the comments. It's a new, we're asking the residents to change their behaviors and be kind of aware of some of these things. There's reflectors, like you said, on the tips of the medians when they come in, but it's dark down there. So yeah, we're taking
all the way.
Yeah.
I would think my neighbor's porch lights would illuminate it.
The other thing I was going to ask you is to explain the deal that you're bringing in that auditing firm to audit businesses that aren't paying their taxes.
Sure. Yeah, well, we'll answer Chuck's question, then we'll come over here and grab the question. So the council meeting on Tuesday night, City Council adopted with a 7-0 vote to hire a firm that's going to do desk audits of business sales tax remittance. Basically what that is that when we have a 2% city sales tax that we all pay for goods and or services that we use here in our city, businesses then file their TPT tax form. They submit that to the State Department of Revenue, who then in turn sends the data and the money to us so we can provide the services that we provide as a city government. The desk audits basically would take a look and which is done in all good business. Takes about a 10% margin of error of different industry classifications and just tests against what the mean is to make sure that the city is getting the 2% that we're all paying at these businesses is actually coming back to the city. They expect, based on some data and historical analysis that they went through, that this will create $130,000 of additional revenues ongoing. And it's not that these businesses are not paying it intentionally. It's that it's a pretty complicated form. And so it allows the desk auditor to help educate business owners on how to properly fill out the form and then remit the proper taxes. Some of the more sophisticated industries and or businesses with computer systems and technology, it's fairly simple because those systems just basically do it for you. But for a lot of our folks that are still on cash registers or manual systems, it's difficult to know the difference between gross revenue and taxes. So although your cash receipts that you're depositing in the bank might be a certain number, that includes the sales tax collection as well. So that's what we addressed at the council on Tuesday. And it's just as any good stewards of business and government, we need to ensure that we're protecting all of the citizens of our community.
And it's also people that do work for cash.
Absolutely, yeah. It tests against the mean. So we're not targeting a certain industry or certain group, or it's an accounting test method to ensure that we're properly getting what is owed to the city. So there's a yes, sir.
Lake Havasu, how did we end up engineering from going from 2 lanes northbound to choking to 1 lane, going 100 yards, and then back up to 2 lanes? How did that end up that way?
So we've enjoyed the design and everything that was created by Robert McCulloch back in the 70s.
Right.
Part of that is the identification of a right-of-way. So we only have so many feet to work with on some of these roads. So in some areas we're real happy to have about 100 feet. In a lot of areas we have about 60, 70 feet of right-of-way. And if we're not able to acquire additional right-of-way from some of the property owners along our roads, then we have choke points that exist.
So that was the McCulloch engineering.
Well, it was. Who knew at the time what he was doing, how big Lake Havasu City was eventually going to get. So right now, as we guide through the process, we're dealing with some shorter amounts of right-of-way, and we got to make do with roads and traffic with what we're given. So.
Can I have one more?
Please.
The new entry into the new marina, southbound right turn pocket lane. Now I assume that's going to be used by boats up to 50 feet and with tractors pulling them. Is that turn radius going to be large enough to get into that street? It seems narrow.
ADOT told us it would. They're the ones that approve that process, and they're the ones that have looked at it very closely. ADOT's been known from time to time to look at things a second time and make adjustments down as it goes. We expect a lot of traffic. Eventually, they'll go down to that marina, and we expect that there'll be some changes with that design.
Did they put a time date on that yet?
Well, those are the challenges that we're working with Arizona State Parks. So when the new director comes this month, we'll have better answers at our next meeting in April.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
The early portion of Lake Havasu Boulevard that you guys worked on, and you had everything under the street tore up, basically on the northbound side. Nothing was done to the southbound side, and that road is a total mess. He was speaking about motorcycles. You ride down that road on a motorcycle, especially at night, some of us older guys can't see that well at night. You don't see all the tar and the cracks and the potholes and all the crap that's there, and it's a hazard. Why didn't you fix it when you had it opened up?
We have about we have about $5.5 million that in our HERF fund that's used for all of our streets and construction. And when we took a look at trying to expand that area and make it a little safer for access up and down that road, we had X amount of dollars to work with, and that was basically our way of trying to mitigate the accidents in that area. And if we would have needed about another 75% of that budget to do what we and we're at the same time, we just had a staff meeting yesterday morning. We're talking about that issue specifically and what we can do on that side of the road. So we're looking at it, but it all comes down to the dollars that we have. So when I talk
I
about,
think you need to find the dollars or you're gonna end up spending 10 times as much, because if you wait 5 years, it's gonna cost you 10 times more.
I'm open to ideas.
It's not gonna last 5 years on that side.
Yeah.
Yeah, sir?
The section of the 95 southbound from, say, where Lowe's butts in down to the bridge area is rougher than a cob already and getting worse. Do we have any feedback from the state highway as to when they're going to resurface that area?
Yeah, so it's so full circle what we just did today. So I think the first question, we started out with the gasoline tax and the vehicle license fee, and then we're ending with the horrible roads we have. So yeah, full circle. So Jess and I did meet with the engineer responsible for our district, specifically for that area. We actually, specifically, it was North Palo Verde into North Coma, that section specifically, and they are working on some areas on that. But in their traffic plan, they plan out for multiple years. I think we're like 4 years down.
There's some improvements as far as
Besides
that, you know, in addition to that Kiowa intersection and so forth. The short answer to your question is they don't have any major dollars identified for any road improvements on 95 to the degree that we'd love to see them. Now there's dollars that are earmarked for patchwork and small small overlays, things like that can occur. But right now the response we get back from ADOT constantly is we don't have the dollars, we don't have the dollars, we don't have the dollars. But there are, I think, a few years out, they're supposed to have an increase with the district's budget for maintenance dollars. So we're going to bring another $3 to $4 million, I think it was, into their annual operations. That's just going to be for maintenance, but that's for the district. That's for Mojave County. And you drive up 95. It feels like a cob, like you said. You go up 40, it has the same effect. So a lot of our roads in the area have that same feel. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. So we stress the importance of Havasu, obviously, when we're talking to the ADOT engineers, and we've been picking on them a little bit too. I just want to thank them publicly for the efforts that they did in terms of the trash pickup in that same area that you're talking about. So they're out here maybe like twice a year in years past, and we talked to them, addressed them, bugged them. And now they're out here every 2 months picking up trash along the right of way on 95. So we've seen some improvement there, and we'll continue to bug them and annoy them until we get to some significant road improvements in the area as well too. So.
Okay.
Yes.
Back to the tax.
Yes.
The people you're having come in. I was just wondering. I don't have a rental here, a VRBO, but I have one in Florida, and they, my management company out there, they collect the tax. And the VRBO and all the companies like that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Are you looking into that you're being paid from them?
Yes, the vacation rentals and ensuring that people are doing short-term rentals are paying their taxes. Yeah, that's part of the legislation that we're working on to ensure. Currently, our ordinance does allow that, but we need some statewide assistance, and that's what we're working on.
Usually, the people that have a company like VRBO, they don't actually. The individual doesn't collect the tax, the VRBO.
Agreed. And
so you're looking at them.
Yes, and that's more of a statewide issue that we're working to find the right solution that allows local control for the different 91 cities and towns to be able to address it in a way that matters and makes sense for them. So I'm going to take one more question, and then Sonia, and then we will we'll be around all day. So we'll answer any question offline. That's what your calendar looks like, right? Yeah. Yes.
Actually, this isn't a question, but a few months ago, I think August or September, before you became mayor, I announced that we were going to have something new in town, the Dunham Magical Night of Music. Well, it's this month.
Excellent.
March 22nd, downtown. We're meeting at 5 o'clock on Hodel Way. We'll have an opening ceremony, and our mayor will be there, right?
Yes, I will. Yes.
And then between 5:30 and 7:30, we have, right now it's just between Smoke Tree and Querio, and we have 16 or 17 businesses that are going to open, and we'll have a performer in each of the buildings. And so after the opening ceremony, we expect people to disperse and go into the buildings, and they listen to some kind of performer, either a singer or instrument. And then there'll be a tip bag. Now, all the money that goes in that night, the net proceeds from that whole evening goes to our schools here in town for our students for the music department.
Excellent.
So-
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you.
And it's the first year.
Yeah, so March 20.
That's also in memory of Jim Dunham.
Jim Dunham.
Yes. I'm a member of the Calamandi Chorus, and we're singing
Right.
that night.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Great.
right.
All right, Doug. Well, yeah, we'll take Doug's question real quick, and then it's March 22nd. Yes, March 22nd, Hodel Way, 5 p.m. on McCulloch in the Main Street area. And it will be a great night for musical and artists and yes, and money raising for our local schools for the music and education program. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Doug.
And next weekend, March 8th, 9th, and 10th, is the Pickleball Association's 6th annual pickleball tournament. We will have about 150 participants. Please come out and join. If you don't know what pickleball is, it's a great sport. It's the fastest growing sport in America. And if you come on Saturday, plan on walking because the parking lot's going to be full because they have Little League going and pickleball going at the same time. But come on out and join us. It's a fun sport.
All right, thank you. That's Pickleball Association. Sonia has one last.
One more thing. One more thing. Be looking downtown for a piano on the street, and it'll be on Hodel Way. We're not sure the date. We hope to get it there on the 15th. But it's a piano that if you know how to play piano and you're walking by, you just open it up and it says, "Play like you mean it," and play on it.
Nice. Yeah, very nice. All right, so we have a couple of final comments. Senator Borelli has something to share.
Yes, goes along with that public service announcement kind of thing. If any of you are getting phone calls from the IRS and Social Security saying you owe us money, whatever, that kind of thing, tell them to please call you on a different phone number because the number you're calling me on is a work number. So then just tell them to call you back on this number, which is 602-542-5025. That's the Attorney General's number.
Thank you, Senator. All right, we always like to finish this event with tidbits about the city, so I want to share some fast facts about the city on here. Also, our next Coffee with the Mayor is on Friday, April 1st. It's at the Aquatic Center. What we're doing a little bit differently this year is we're taking our tour on the road to government-owned facilities so that you can see where your taxpayer money is going. So after you're done here, please take a tour with the chief and the fire department and our firefighters that would love to show you around this facility. Then join us at the Aquatic Center on Friday, April 1st. A couple of fast facts. Some of our code enforcement efforts, 55% of all code enforcement complaints are for debris or trash. 16% is about setbacks and buildings. Our city attorney's office prosecuted almost 1,500 criminal cases last year. So busy office. Our court system, a lot of people don't or forget that someone has to be arraigned within 24 hours. So our courts are open 365 days a year. So a lot of people think it's a Monday through Friday gig. Yeah, no, they're open every single day. So our court staff is always working. The number of let's see, so there's IT, so our information technology department supports over 15.5 miles of fiber optics used to connect all of these different city facilities that we've been touring. The city has over 800 terabytes of hard drive storage for file software and databases. So huge stuff. The number of takeoff and landings on average at our Lake Havasu airport is 127 per day. So yeah, so people say that the airport's not busy. 127 average takeoff and landings. As always, thank you for the opportunity to serve you as mayor of Lake Havasu. If there's anything that I can do for you or any of the council members, let us know. And of course, Jess will be here as well that helps make all of this stuff happen. So thank you for being here and enjoy the tour of this facility.